Good morning, everyone. Rise and shine. It is time for qualifying in the DTM. We are here in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, a really challenging racetrack, but we love it. It's 4.3 kilometers. It has 10 curves. It's embedded into a beautiful landscape, and with all the ups and downs, there's a 65-meter difference of height. So, whoo, that's pretty tricky. And as you can see, it's pretty cloudy at the moment. The weather app says it's going to be dry for the qualifying. We'll see about that, but later on it's supposed to rain for the race, which I guess will make one man very happy, and that is Kelvin van der Linde, because yesterday he said that they're lacking the pace, which was kind of expected, and he sounded very disappointed, and that also means that he's hoping for a wet race, which he might get. Kelvin is quite a bit ahead of Mirko Bortolotti, 7 points ahead, so he is the leader of the championship. We will see what that means after the qualifying. He's going to be fighting really hard. He is a fighter, and yeah, there's also news about Abt regarding next year in this season. So let's hear from the commentators. Enjoy the qualifying.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a rather grey, overcast Red Bull Ring for this penultimate weekend of DTM 2024. Only 15 points between the top three in the championship. Crucial points coming up in this qualifying session as well, remember, with 3 points available for pole, 2 points for qualifying second, and a point for qualifying third. The best qualifier on average this year, with an average of fourth on the grid, has been Mirko Bortolotti. He's been in the top three 8 times out of the 12 qualifying sessions so far. That has mustered 14 points, which is more than the equivalent of a fourth place finish. And he was going pretty well yesterday in the free practice sessions. We had a wet free practice, one very wet, which got stopped actually for a while because it was so difficult out there in terms of the amount of surface water and aquaplaning that was going on. But then we had a track which started damp and dried up for free practice too. So they were busy getting the cars out there and doing as many laps as they could in the afternoon session, because it was their only chance to run in the dry. We've had some overnight dampness. It is a damp track, but a drying track. We've just had a GT Masters qualifying session. They switched to slicks midway through the session, and the track was getting quicker and quicker and quicker right to the end. So it's could be a case of one of those sessions where we get exactly the same. Everybody that crosses the line goes quicker than the preceding driver. It could be one of those sessions. There is Sheldon van der Linde, who's got a big job to do in qualifying here, because he's had 3 reprimands now, and if you get 3 reprimands, you automatically get a 5-place grid penalty at the next race. So a 2022 champion with a 5-place grid penalty. It's also worth mentioning that Kelvin van der Linde, the championship leader, has got 2 reprimands, so he's got to be a little bit careful going into these final 2 weekends of the season. So the cars will go out for a 20-minute qualifying session, as if it's normally the case, as it has been this season. Then we'll see them really concentrating on setting times in the last 6 or 7 minutes of the session, particularly, I would think, today, where the track is only going to get better. And news, as Verena said, coming this morning, it's kind of as expected. The rumours had been going, but after 25 years with Audi, Abt Sportsline are parting ways with the brand and moving to Lamborghini in the DTM next year. So they'll be with Lamborghini back in the DTM, which is great news. Of course, Abt Sportsline, the stalwarts of the championship, they have had a relationship with Lamborghini, which is in the same group, the Volkswagen group, as Audi. With 2 years running in the Nürburgring 24-hour race with Lamborghinis. So they will switch up with less support these days, factory support coming from Audi. They've taken that decision to switch to Lamborghinis. So could be, for Kelvin van der Linde, quite a fitting way to end that relationship if he can win the championship, win his first title in the DTM. And he has this slender 7-point lead over Mirko Bortolotti, with Maro Engel catching up to certainly Mirko Bortolotti in the last 2 rounds of the championship with his consistent finishes. Neither Bortolotti nor Engel have taken a race win this year. Kelvin van der Linde has taken 2, and that in the end has given him the edge, but it is only just an edge in the championship. So we're all set to go for qualifying in the next 10 seconds. We're here at the Red Bull Ring, overlooking the start-finish line at this circuit, which was completely revamped by Dietrich Mateschitz. It started life in the late 1960s as a permanent circuit, at the Oostenrijkring. It was then shortened in the mid-1990s after many years as a Formula One Grand Prix track. Became the A1 ring, and then in 2011 it was refurbished, and this wonderful facility now, the Red Bull Ring, host to the penultimate weekend of DTM 2024. We can see the cars from the commentary box overlooking the pit lane have made their way to the end of the pit lane and making their way out onto the track now. And we'll talk you through the session. My name's Chris Hartley, and alongside me, it's good morning to Brian Oliver.
Good morning, Chris. I'm looking forward to this. If this qualifying session is half as good as the GT Masters qualifying session we've just seen, where Max Rice drove the lap of his life to get his pole position with seconds to go, then we are in for a real treat. It's going to be a session, as already said, about strategy as this track gets faster and faster. We saw from the shots at the beginning of this broadcast, all the cars that we saw on camera were putting wet tyres on. So most of the cars will want to get out, get the first lap in, a banker lap in on those wet tyres, but we reckon the slicks are going to be out as this session rolls on, and it will be last car across the line potentially that could get a pole position. It's going to be an exciting 18 3/4 minutes ahead of us.
Yeah, it's declared as a wet session, even though it's not a fully wet track, so that you have the option to put the wet tyres on. It's the coolest track temperatures that we've had so far this weekend. It's under 10 degrees, the track temperature, contrary to what we had a few weeks ago at the Saxon Ring, where it was raging hot, 30-degree air temperature and 35+ degree track temperature. So feeling suddenly very autumnal. We've got the low cloud around us as well, surrounding the beautiful mountains here in this part of Austria. And the drivers, with many of them having been here on a private test. You get to have 5 test days per driver across the course of a season privately, and lots of them using up the opportunity to come to the Red Bull Ring. A week and a half ago, 12 of the drivers were here. Sheldon van der Linde was the driver that was quickest. To give you an idea what sorts of times we can be expecting in terms of lap times, René Rast set the lap record last year on his way to a pole position on the Sunday and a race victory, his first for BMW last year. And the time in qualifying that he set, which is the record in GT3 around here, is a 1:27.671. In that private test a couple of weeks ago, Sheldon van der Linde was pretty close to that with 1:27.9s. But obviously, I haven't been anywhere near that so far this weekend, because free practice 1 was very wet. Lucas Au was quickest in free practice 1 with a 1:38.051. Thomas Preining, the fellow Austrian who's been a race winner here in the wet 2 years ago, was second quickest, and Kelvin van der Linde was slightly disappointed to be third quickest in the wet conditions. He's been the master of the new wet tyres this year. And then Lukas Stolz set some really quick lap times at the end of free practice 2 as the track dried. 1:29.7 was the best time he set. Mirko Bortolotti was second. Maro Engel was third. So 2 of the key championship contenders went well in the dry track, but then falling down the order was Kelvin van der Linde. He only finished 13th. And part of the reason they're worried about the Audi around here is because of the elevation here and the height of the circuit. The altitude here is 640 metres above sea level. The turbo-powered engines of the McLaren, which is the bi-turbo engine, the BMW, and the Ferrari, they have turbo-powered engines which are able to breathe that little bit better, but the naturally aspirated engines struggle a bit with a thinner air. And yesterday, Kelvin van der Linde was saying a much more extreme case of that was always Kyalami circuit in South Africa, the former Grand Prix track, which is 1,200 metres above sea level, and the Audis always struggled there. But also, Brian, you need a lot of top-end speed around here. It's mighty quick on that run up to turn 3. They get up to something like 260 kilometres an hour, and the Audi haven't got the greatest top speed, not quite up there with the Lamborghinis and the Mercedes and the BMWs of the world, is it?
Yeah, and it's a steep climb up to turn 3 as we look down from that point now. Prior to that, turn 2, it's called a turn, but they take it absolutely flat out. It's a pretty hazardous part of the track when it's wet. It takes a lot of bravery to keep your foot planted on it, which is exactly what Kelvin van der Linde is doing. Most of the cars have been out for their installation lap and come back into the pits. There's a handful still out on the track at the moment, and Kelvin van der Linde in the Audi out at the moment, just generating heat in the tyres. We saw from the camera shot just now some of the teams already opting to put slick tyres onto the cars. You can see from your graphic, though, that Kelvin van der Linde has wet weather tyres on at the moment. We've seen him at some points during this season getting out early in the qualifying session and just staying out for the whole session, putting in lap after lap. Apt quite often doing strategies that are quite contrary to the cars around them.
Kelvin van der Linde, despite all the worries about the Audi not being super competitive around this circuit, did win a race last year on a drying track on the Saturday. But on the Sunday, the team, when it was dry, really did struggle. So we'll see how it get on. But they have had a slight increase in terms of the BOP, and the size of the air restrictor is bigger than it was last year, only slightly. It's a 37mm restrictors on it. It was 36mm restrictors on the Audis with the balanced performance here last year. So it should have slightly more power available to them. And the Mercedes have got 36mm restrictors, which are 1.5 millimeters bigger than they had here at the Red Bull Ring as well. And they certainly look decent in the wet, the Mercedes, who've had 5 podiums here since it became the GT3 era of DTM in 2021, but they haven't had a win here since 2003. That sounds worse than it is, because there were 8 years where we didn't come to Austria in the DTM until 2011, when Martin Tomczyk was the first winner on the new revamped Red Bull Ring in DTM, and the team principal of AB Sportsline. But nonetheless, it's more than 20 years since Mercedes have had a win here. Ferraris have had wins here, with a double victory a few years ago for Liam Lawson, now of course a full-time Formula 1 driver, the runner-up in the 2021 DTM Championship. Riccardo Fella going out. He had a rotten weekend, didn't he, Brian, last time out, which put an end to his run of 26 consecutive point-scoring finishes.
Yeah, he was very frustrated after the Sachsenring weekend, and reflected his thoughts on his Instagram post. And as the sparks fly up from Luca Engsler's Lamborghini, very dramatic indeed. But yes, Riccardo Fella feeling very frustrated by lack of pace, especially as he's seeing his teammate Kelvin van der Linde very much at the top of the championship. There's Jack Aitken for Emil Frey Racing in the Ferrari, just back into the pits at the moment. We've just got 2 cars out on the track, Riccardo Fella and Mirko Bortolotti. It's going to be, make that 3, because Kelvin van der Linde now coming out to join them. But it's going to be maybe a quiet few minutes. It is going to get very lively towards the end of this session, though. Absolutely. It
could be about timing it right and being the last one over the line, potentially. Lauren Heinrich was on pole position here on the Saturday last year in the Porsche. René Rast in the BMW on the Sunday. On Saturday, we had a win for Kelvin van der Linde. Lauren Heinrich finished second. Riccardo Fella had a storming drive from the back of the field to come through and finish in 3rd place. It was one of the drives of the season, no doubt about it. He also had a brilliant battle with René Rast for the last 10 minutes of that race, trying to fend off René, which he did successfully. So that was a highlight of last year for sure for the driver that ended up finishing 3rd in the championship, Riccardo Fella. And then on the Sunday, René Rast took a victory ahead of Sheldon van der Linde, a BMW 1-2, and Thomas Preining came home in 3rd in the dry in the Porsche. Tommy's saying we're good here in the wet. It's always a bit of a mixed bag for the Porsche, though, here in the dry. Sometimes we're right up there, sometimes we struggle a bit. But Preining 5th in the championship, home circuit, still very much in the championship fight. And if he can get a really good weekend here, then you never know where he might get up to. Now, Thierry Vermeulen is one of the drivers under investigation. Franck Pereira is the other. Vermeulen's gone off the road as well, like in the Ferrari. But there's these very helpful escape roads on the outside of some of the gravel traps, which means you're able to rejoin without too much drama. And because of the rain we've had this coming up into today and yesterday morning in particular, that gravel is compacted, compressed down, so you don't get stuck in it quite so readily. But we certainly had a few drivers going off in the GT Masters qualifying session that ran just before we came on air. So it is still greasy and still slippery out there. Thierry Vermeulen extremely unlucky not to get his first race victory last time out at the Sachsenring, having done everything perfectly from a driving point of view, but then picking up a penalty because for the pit stop, one of the team crew members just let go of the wheels. The rule is you have to have at least a hand on the wheels when they're on the floor ready for the cars to come in. He just momentarily took his hand off the wheel to adjust his glasses, and that gave him a penalty then to Vermeulen.
In front is really a big mess. In front is really a big mess at the moment. And you have now Bendor is the car directly in front.
A big mess. It's going to be chaotic, you're right, isn't it? 10.5 minutes to go. The calm before the storm here. Now they're all going to be scrambling for track position and moaning about drivers going off the road in front of them, holding them up, blocking them. So I think we could get a very mixed grid here. For the championship contenders, it's going to be a case of just try and get through this session, because it feels like, Brian, one of those sessions, as we see Kelvin van der Linde going off the road, it could be one of those sessions where you could end up at the top, or you could just as easily end up at the bottom of the timing screen.
Yes, it's a fairly short track at 4.3 kilometres with just 10 turns. So finding a bit of space out on the circuit is one thing. As we look again at that moment that Kelvin van der Linde went wide. And on that subject of going wide, we need to keep an eye on track limits. It is always an issue here at the Red Bull Ring. We saw it a lot yesterday, especially in the drive free practice 2. Drivers exceeding track limits, especially on turn 10 and on turn 1. On turn 10, if you exceed track limits, you'll not only lose the lap that you're just completing, you'll lose the next lap as well, because you'll be perceived to get an advantage in the launch into the following lap. There are some cones on the outside of the circuit of turn 10, and they need to stay within those cones. If they go around it or over or around the outside of those cones, they will exceed track limits.
Yeah, it's turn 4 where Kelvin went off the Rauch curve. It's quite a steep-ish downhill run into that corner. It's where at the top of the circuit it flattens out, and then that's really where the descent back downhill, the roller coaster down through the middle part of the lap begins. And we saw Maro Engel going off there yesterday. Rennie Rast went off there yesterday in the wet conditions as well. So it's a tricky corner. Second gear in the dry, 90 kilometres an hour. So it's pretty heavy on the brakes into that. But all the weight is transferred on the front of the car. The back end of the car goes light and skips around very easily. So Tommy Preining out on track. We haven't really yet had a representative lap time. Kelvin van der Linde top with a 1:33.7. There to the left is Olaf Manthey, ex-DTM racer himself. Always with that little glint in his eye, hasn't he, when he knows he's on camera, but he never cracks a smile. He's seen it all. The team's champions last year, of course, on their return to DTM, and Tommy Preining with the Drivers' Championship in 2023, and still fighting hard this year. He's been scoring good points of late. Kelvin van der Linde of the top 5 in terms of the last 2 rounds of the championship with the best form. He scored 71 points across the last 4 races and 4 qualifying sessions. Maro Engel has been the second best point scorer out of the top 5. He's got 66, only 5 fewer than Kelvin. And then Mirko Bortolotti 59, Jack Aitken 51, the most winning driver of the year so far, 4th in the points.
For the warm-up, you can stay where you are. As soon as you think you need to really push, you make a little bit of a gap to the rear.
Yeah, it's all about track position, and drivers are going to be relying on race engineers telling them where the gaps are behind them, who's coming out of the pits in front of them, etc. They're all on the track now. We've got 7.5 minutes to go, and this, Brian, is where the qualifying session really begins. That track is only going to get quicker as the session goes on.
Interesting that all the cars are on slick tyres with the exception of Marco Wittmann, who's chosen to stay on the wet weather tyres. That's either going to be a brilliant idea or an awful idea, but probably nothing in between. You can see the dry line appearing on the track. It is incredibly slippery off the dry line, so any cars that move off that dry line that you can see are going to be in trouble. I expect that Marco Wittmann will be driving a completely different line as he tries to keep those wet weather tyres cool. There he is in the green and white BMW just heading up into turn 1.
Yeah, the sector, the way the lap is split into 3. Sector 1, it's a fairly short sector. It only takes in that corner, turn 1, the right-hander at the beginning of the lap, the Niki Lauda curve, up the hill, up then downhill, then uphill again, up into the Munster curve, turn 2, flat out, and before you get to turn 3, that's where sector 1 ends. Sector 2 takes in turn 3 at the top of the hill, that back straight along the top of the hill, running along the mountains, and then down through the Rauch curve at turn 4, turns 5, turn 6, it ends on the exit to turn 6. That's much bigger. It's double the length of the first sector, so that's one you've really got to get right. And then the last sector takes in the last 4 turns, the left at turn 7, and then turn 8, the uphill climb into turn 9, the downhill run through turns 9 and 10, and back over the start-finish line, which is in between the length of sectors 1 and 2. But the middle sector, really the one you've got to absolutely nail, because that takes in pretty much half of the lap time. Right, Thierry Vermeulen sets the absolute best first sector time, a 22.950. First driver into the 22s through that first sector. The young Dutch driver in the number 69 Ferrari has gone through sector 2 now, but he isn't the quickest through there. That's still Kelvin van der Linde with a 44.1. He's nearly 5 tenths down through that second sector. The Dutch driver who got his first ever podium in DTM last time out at the Sachsenring. You're watching him now go through the last part of the lap with the Lamborghini of Mirko Bortolotti right behind him. So these will be better laps for both of them, but we're going to have to get a lot quicker than this in the last 5 minutes of the session to see real pole position type times. So Vermeulen goes 4th, and that becomes 5th, because right behind him Mirko Bortolotti goes 2nd. So at the moment the top 2 of the championship are the top 2 on the grid, but we're only in the 1 minute 33s.
We've got 5 minutes for it all to play out. Clemens Schmid has exceeded track limits, so he sees himself, well, he was firmly at the bottom of the pack, but now he has suddenly put in a really quick lap and jumps up to P2. So despite having the previous lap disallowed, Clemens Schmid with a 1:33.750, but still plenty more time to come as Luca Engstler now goes quickest of anybody in Sector 1.
Yeah, Luca Engstler is through Sector 2, but loses time through the middle sector. Quite a lot of time as well. The absolute best middle sector is a 41.1 by Kelvin van der Linde. He's 7/10 off. So that's lost too much time, really, despite the good start to the lap for the Lamborghini driver. One of our 9 different race winners so far this season. That's him coming past René Rast, who bails for the pits. His teammate, Sheldon van der Linde, is stone last at the moment and has a 5-place grid penalty for the reprimands that he's picked up. René Rast and Thomas Preining had to serve 5-place grid penalties last time at the Sachsenring for the same thing. Kelvin van der Linde is pushing hard. He's at a personal best through the first sector. Luca Engstler did go top of the times, despite losing all that time in the middle of the lap. He had the absolute best final sector. Ben Durr now goes quicker, and Nicky Tim has as well. At 1:32s we're into now, but we're still something like 5 seconds off the pace here. Mirko Bortolotti then with the absolute best middle sector, Brian, 41.084, and there he goes across the line, top of the times. That's the first benchmark, 1:32.3, but I still think we're going to go a lot quicker than this in the last few minutes.
And René Rast is under investigation for blocking Ian Changun in turn 9. So we saw him peeling off into the pits. He is in P17 at the moment, so he's got a lot of work to do. The McLaren monstering across the curbs. You see how slippery it is out there.
Yeah, Clemens Schmid giving it everything there, wasn't he, on the way through the right-hander at turn 1. The Austrian who didn't do many laps in the first qualifying, first free practice session yesterday in the wet. He did 14 laps. His teammate Ben Durr did over 30 laps, so trying to make up for lost time here. There is his teammate Ben Durr at the moment. He's running well in 5th place overall. Arjun Maini has popped himself up to 2nd place, having set the absolute best final sector. But Borto is on a quick one here. Absolute best first sector for Bortolotti in the number 92 Lamborghini. He's about to make his way out of turn 6 down towards the end of the 2nd sector. If he can nail the 2nd sector, he'll be in a really good place here to improve upon his own lap. We'll wait for him to cross that line and the time to update, but he's certainly on a charge at the moment, Bortolotti. And we've then got Arjun Maini 2nd, Clemens Schmid 3rd now, Ben Durr 4th, so McLaren's 3rd and 4th. I'd love the session to end now. Ben Durr goes to the top of the times for now with a 1:32.087. Bortolotti backed right off in the middle sector. I thought it was taking a long time to get to that sector line. He backed right off, so he's going to try and wind it up again. So the Lamborghini driver winds it up, finds a bit of track space. He's going to have time just about for 2 more laps in the session as Marco Wittmann pushes up to 6th place, and Nicky Tim has now set the best first sector, but Arjun Maini's going to be the first one to watch here, Brian, because he's done the absolute best middle sector.
He was so quick yesterday, and he's quick again today. So Arjun Maini with a personal best in Sector 1, an overall best in Sector 2. Out of Sector 3 he comes to cross the line. Arjun Maini with a 1:31.338 takes him to the top of the timing screens. 1:31.338 is the first into the 31s.
He's never had a pole. He's been on the podium. The only ever Indian driver to compete in DTM to be on the podium. Could he get a pole position? There's still a long way to go, even though there's 1 minute and 28 seconds left on the clock. And Nicky Tim is now lighting up the timing screens. You're following the day now. He's done the absolute best first 2 sectors. He's just got to hold it together now through the last 2 turns downhill, avoid exceeding track limits, and he'll be going to the top of the times with this lap. But for how long? Because Maro Engel behind him has gone even quicker through the middle sector. Absolute best for the driver, 3rd in the championship at the moment. Engstler goes 2nd for now. What about Nicky Tim? He should be top of the time, shouldn't it, as he comes through? Not quite. He goes 2nd quickest. So it's Ben Durr, Arjun Maini and Nicky Tim, the top 3. But wait for Maro Engel to come through as well. He's on a charge. And we've also got Max Powell with the absolute best middle sector as well. It's all about timing this. Maro Engel goes to the top of the times. He's got time for 1 more lap as well, with 44 seconds left on the clock.
But keep an eye on Max Powell. He's gone the quickest of anybody in Sector 2. He's into the last part of the lap now, keeping inside those marker cones. Out of turn 10 comes Max Powell. Is this going to be quick enough to put him on the front row, even on pole position? He comes across to cross the line. He stops the clock, and it's the fastest time for Max Powell, a 1:30.827.
Lucas Stoltz and Arjun Maini go across the line, and Maini goes to the top of the times, 1:30.617. He crossed the line with about 15 seconds left to go, so he's going to be the last but one to cross the line. The last one to get across the line to get a lap in before the time runs out is Sheldon van der Linde, who's 13th at the moment, but remember, has a 5-place grid penalty. But he'll be the last one over the line, so let's see what Stoltz and Maini can do. How's Stoltz getting on? Pretty well. He's in 5th place at the moment. The checkered flag is now waving, and it could very well go down to this last lap. It probably will go down to this last lap of the session as the track dries up. We're going 3 seconds lap quicker than we were even 5 minutes ago in this session. Marco Wittmann has set 2 personal best lap sector times as well, so the BMW driver looking to get up the order now, keeping an eye on Arjun Maini. Absolute best through the first sector. He's already on course for pole position by nearly 0.2 of a second. What about Lucas Stoltz? Pretty good as well, but a 10th slower through that first sector. The 2 Mercedes running together, and Max Powell has gone absolute best in the middle sector once again. Could he get his 2nd pole of the year, Brian?
Oh, he really could, isn't it? It's the personal best sector 1, absolute best sector 2. Max Powell into sector 3 now. He's got Lucas Auer just ahead of him, but I don't think that's going to trouble him too much into turn 10. So Max Powell, can he put it on to pole position? He's in P4 at the moment. He goes flat out towards the line, stops the clock, and it's a 1:30.403, fastest time of all.
But here come Lucas Stoltz and Arjun Maini, next 2 over the line, right behind. Can they pop back ahead of him? Yes!
Oh.
Arjun Maini goes to the top of the times, back onto pole position with a 1:30.128. One more driver to cross the line, and that's going to be Sheldon van der Linde, who goes through now, but he's only 15th. And so for the first time in the history of the DTM, Arjun Maini gets pole position. It's the first time a driver from India has been on pole in the DTM. A wonderful effort. He's having his best season to date in the DTM, and he nicks pole position in the end by nearly 0.3 of a second. Max Powell in 2nd place, Maro Engel and Mirko Bortolotti, the 2 key championship contenders, 3rd and 4th. Lucas Stoltz 5th. Lucas Auer back on form this weekend in 6th place. Then Luca Engstler, Nicky Tim, Ben Durr and Thierry Vermeulen, and you have to go all the way down to 18th place to find the championship leader, Kelvin van der Linde. The only slight thing that won't even cheer him up will be 1 place up there, because his brother is ahead of him by a few positions and has a 5-place grid penalty, but he's going to be starting 17th on the grid with Thomas Preining down in 19th place in qualifying as well. Those 2 will start 17th and 18th. Could be quite a race watching them come through potentially, but that's huge disappointment for the championship leader. And Maro Engel gets a championship point as well for qualifying in 3rd. But how about that? Arjun Maini and Mercedes, Team HRT, pole position here at the Red Bull Ring from Max Powell, who will be on the front row of the grid for the 2nd time this year. Maro Engel continues to impress this season. 3rd for him, 4th for Bortolotti. He'll be pretty satisfied with that, because as I said, a session where it could have gone very wrong, as it did for Kelvin van der Linde. Lucas Stoltz, Lucas Auer, Luca Engstler, Nicky Tim and Ben Durr and Thierry Vermeulen all in the top 10 as well. But others that were hugely disappointed in that session included Rene Rast and Jack Aitken, 16th and 17th.
So Ian, this is your first DTM pole, my friend. Congratulations, you fucking machine. Well done and well deserved. I know you don't have radio, but celebrate this in the car, my friend.
Wonderful. Apologies for your upset by any fruity language in that radio call, but they are understandably overjoyed. The irony of all of this, Brian, is that yesterday in free practice, one in the wet, Arjun Maini's race engineer was telling him to slow down. He said, come on, Arjun, it's not qualifying. You haven't got to go this quick. But that practice paid off in the end, and here he is coming in to the holding area in the top 3 come in, and he's right in the middle there because he is your pole sitter for race 1 this afternoon, and there's going to be absolute jubilation when he gets out of the car in a second.
You are an absolute machine. Brilliant line. It was a line of the day yesterday when this is not qualifying, you need to slow down. This is qualifying, he didn't slow down. What a brilliant job. A great job for Max Powell as well, who'll line up on the front row. Also, hats off to Ben Durr, P9 in the McLaren. Great job for him.
Take your radio off, Arjun.
He's still connected.
Can't get out of the car. There we go. There's the cheer. Well done, Arjun Maini. Fantastic effort. He gets a hug as well from Maro Engel. 2 Mercedes up there. In fact, the top 6, we've got 4 Mercedes in the top 6. And also 2 Lamborghinis, so Porsches and Audis and Ferraris, a real struggle for them in a bit of a lottery of a session, but it was all about the timing. And last but one over the line was Arjun Maini. And to add to the 3rd places he got in qualifying here at the Red Bull Ring, he got 3rd on the grid in 2021. At Hockenheim, at Oschersleben this year, and at Zandvoort this year, he was in 3rd place in qualifying as well, but that is his first pole position, and the team delighted for him. And let's see what he can do now, see if he can go on and get his first win in the DTM this afternoon. There's some debate about what the weather is going to do. One weather app says it's going to rain. My weather app said there's only a 20 to 29% chance of some rain. It'll be largely cloudy, so could be dry for the race, could be some showers. We shall see. But as he gets weighed in and goes through all the post-qualifying procedures, Arjun Maini, he barely looks out of breath, does he? Big smile on his face. He had a really tough season in 2023. It's been great to see him bounce back this year with his best ever finishing position at the moment in the DTM. He runs in 8th place in the championship. He's been as high as 5th. And I think we'll be lucky enough now to hear from your pole sitter.
I'm here with Arjun Maini. Congratulations. It's the first time in the history that an Indian race driver was on pole in the DTM, so congratulations to that. Are you going to manage to make a win out of it?
I mean, of course, that's the plan. But first of all, I didn't even know I was on pole because my radio wasn't working. So, yeah, just super happy. I mean, I have a few hours to enjoy it, then the pressure's on again. But, yeah, I cannot thank Mercedes-AMG Team HRT enough. They've been giving me such a strong car all year, and finally we made a pole.
Finally, and best of luck for the race.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, imagine he not knowing you're on pole position. He got the radio working properly there. He didn't need to know. He just needed to get his head down and drive. Most difficult thing about that qualifying session was get out of the car because there was not much room to get out without denting the door, and then in all the excitement forgot to unplug his radio. But great job by Hubert Haupt's team, HRT here. And they've done a great job as well. Arjun said to me several times this year they've worked super hard over the winter to get back on form because they really struggled, particularly in qualifying last year, and they have big time turned it around this year. Let's get some more reaction then, down with Verena.
And I'm here with Max Powell. Congratulations. Good qualifying for you. It was difficult getting out of the car. They packed you in, but you managed to be here. So what are you going to make out of your P3, or rather your P2, sorry, of qualifying into the race?
Yeah, obviously it's a great position, especially here. We are obviously struggling with the straight line speed compared to a couple of other cars, but yeah, we have a strong package. Like always, the Lambo is great, so I'm looking forward to start in the front row and try to secure it, obviously.
All right, well, congratulations. Best of luck for the race. And we've got Maro Engel here. Maro, congratulations to you. Good qualifying. You were on the podium. You were in... what did I want to say? On 6 times you had a podium, but you haven't won yet. So are you going to change that today?
Oh, hopefully. I mean, we'll definitely try. Yeah, it's been a good season. For sure, we need to continue scoring points as much as we can, but obviously it would be nice to take a win.
And in the qualifying, we saw that the strategy was getting the car out late because I guess it was very slippery out there. So tell us about that strategy.
Yeah, we kind of knew that it would come down to the last lap, that conditions would be improving, and no, I think we did everything right there. If anything, we were maybe a little bit too early over the line and got pipped by cars behind us, but overall a good qualifying.
Looking forward to a good race. Thank you so much, Maro. And yeah, that was an exciting qualifying here at the Red Bull Ring, and now we're looking forward to the race. Here are the highlights. Do enjoy, and we'll see you later.